They were brothers, until fame turned Burning Spear into a monster. The shocking backstage fight that split reggae history in two, the $150 betrayal in New York, and why 20 drummers failed to fill Horsemouth's shoes. Warning, you'll never hear Marcus Garvey the same way again after this video. In the depths of his memory, there lay a grim chapter, one not inked by triumph, but by betrayal. For a man whose rhythms defined an era, the betrayal that came from Winston Rodney, better known as Burning Spear, etched deeper than any wound he had endured. Horsemouth had dedicated years to lifting the foundations of reggae, often extending a hand where there was none. Yet in the end, it was this very loyalty that would become his undoing. Born into the rhythmic cradles of Jamaica, Horsemouth had risen through struggle and sweat, sharpening his craft at Alpha Boys School under the tutelage of the venerable Lenny Hibbert. Those corridors, saturated with the dreams of boys destined to carve their names into music's heartbeat, were where Horsemouth mastered the discipline that would later shape the rocker's rhythm, a revolutionary cadence that forever altered reggae's soul. His journey led him to the sanctified walls of Studio One, that hallowed ground where the pulse of the island sound was being crafted by titans. Horsemouth's talents were not contained merely to drumming. He found a voice in the turntables as Mad Roy, spinning tracks like Universal Love, and collaborated with Lee Scratch Perry on pieces like Herb Vendor. But it was the film Rockers that immortalized him. Playing himself, Horsemouth delivered a portrait of reggae life, so vivid it transcended the screen, solidifying him as more than a musician. He was a symbol of cultural resilience. Amidst this ascent, Horsemouth crossed paths with Burning Spear, a man whose baritone voice and revolutionary anthems seemed to echo the very spirit of Marcus Garvey. Together, they forged music that resonated through the hardships of Jamaica's forgotten streets. Horsemouth, fueled by a brotherly allegiance, went above and beyond. When the gates of Studio One stood closed, it was Horsemouth who vouched for Spear, bypassing auditions that would have otherwise stifled his career. When hunger gnawed at Spear's belly in rural Jamaica, it was Horsemouth who delivered food, not out of obligation, but out of loyalty. Yet as the fires of fame began to smolder, so too did the nature of the man Horsemouth once called a brother. Spear's gratitude, once palpable, withered under the weight of self-importance. The bond fractured, slowly at first, a tension visible in fleeting glances, half-hearted acknowledgments. It came to a devastating crescendo during a performance shared with the Mighty Diamonds, whose electrifying display left the audience spellbound. Burning Spear, overwhelmed by the magnitude of their sound, hesitated. For songs into a 16-song set, his voice still withheld, his body a vessel of silent defiance. Horsemouth, seeing the stage darken with uncertainty, spoke out. His words were sharp, driven not by contempt, but by the urgency to salvage what was teetering on collapse. Yo, you aren't singing. It is better you sing. What's wrong with you country youth? You've gotten too big now. Sing if you're going to sing. It is who made the music. We know the music. It is you who needs to sing with the music now. But pride, that old serpent, reared its head. Burning Spear's rage ignited, and in a moment of pettiness, he destroyed the very boot where Horsemouth kept his precious belongings. That small, symbolic act shattered any remnants of brotherhood. Horsemouth, a man not prone to impulsive violence, saw red. With a swift punch, he sent Burning Spear sprawling. It was not triumph he felt, but a heavy sorrow, the weight of countless sacrifices crushed beneath the debris of that moment. Dirty Harry, among Spear's defenders, rushed to confront him, but Horsemouth, brandishing a cymbal stand like a lance, fought them back. The stage, once a sanctuary of sound, became a battlefield. Burning Spear, seething with indignation, vowed never to work with Horsemouth again. And Horsemouth, wounded not just physically but spiritually, mirrored that vow. Spear's entourage scoured the island for a drummer to fill the void left behind, but Horsemouth's rhythms, born of blood and history, were irreplaceable. Robbie Shakespeare, Horsemouth's trusted ally, delivered the grim verdict. 20 drummers tried, and 20 failed. The beat of Jamaica was not so easily duplicated. Reluctantly, Horsemouth returned to the stage. The show was salvaged, but the damage was irrevocable. That night became a wound in the timeline of reggae, a tear between two architects of its soul. Yet the rift did not end there. In New York, the bitterness resurfaced. After a show, Burning Spear divided the earnings with a cruelty that stunned even Horsemouth. Milo and Wada, backup singers who had stood shoulder to shoulder with Spear in countless performances, received a paltry $150 each. Spear pocketed the rest, oblivious to the silent accusations that hung heavy in the room. Horsemouth could not remain silent. He recounted how Spear had threatened to boycott the film Rockers if Wada, his former backup singer, were involved. It was an ultimatum soaked in hypocrisy and greed. Director Bafalukos, desperate to secure Spear's star power, acquiesced. Wada was sidelined, his sacrifices dismissed like so much dust. Yet, in a cruel twist of fate, Spear profited handsomely from a film built, in part, on the talent he disdained. For Horsemouth, the betrayal was complete. He had vouched for a man who no longer stood on the pillars of loyalty and integrity. Burning Spear, once a beacon of resistance and pride, had become a mirror of the very oppressions he sang against. A man who, when fame and fortune beckoned, turned his back on those who had lifted him to those heights. The tragedy lies not just in the fracture of two men's friendship, but in what it revealed about the toll of fame on the soul. Horsemouth's drums still echo through the corridors of reggae's great history, and Burning Spear's voice continues to roar through speakers worldwide. Yet, behind the music, behind the accolades and the myth, lies a story of sacrifice met with ingratitude, of loyalty crushed by ambition. Rory Horsemouth Wallace's contribution to reggae is indelible. He was not merely a drummer. He was an architect of sound, a steward of culture, a warrior whose weapons were sticks and rhythms. His beats narrated the struggles of a people, their joys and their laments, and in doing so, he carved his name into the stone of musical history. Burning Spear, for all his brilliance, carried within him a flaw too fatal to ignore, a self-serving pride that corroded the very community from which he drew his power. In the end, Horsemouth chose dignity. He refused to bend, refused to return to the side of a man who had betrayed the sanctity of brotherhood. The distance between them became a testament to the price of integrity. In choosing to walk away, Horsemouth preserved not just his legacy, but his soul. It is easy to bask in the radiance of an icon, to sing the praises of men whose songs have become anthems of resistance and pride. But history, in its unforgiving light, demands a deeper reckoning. It asks us to look beyond the music, beyond the myth, and see the men as they truly were, flawed, complex, and human. For Horsemouth and Burning Spear, the untold story is not one of music alone. It is a parable of loyalty and betrayal, of the sacrifices that are so often invisible beneath the glare of fame. It is a story that reminds us that the true measure of a man is not found in his accolades, but in the way he treats those who stood by him when he was yet unknown. As the last notes of the Rockers' rhythm fade into the twilight, and as Burning Spear's voice continues to rise and fall like a sermon on the wind, the memory of that punch, that moment of heartbreaking clarity, endures. It is the drumbeat of a friendship broken, the silent hymn of a loyalty betrayed, and the dark truth behind why Horsemouth struck Burning Spear, never to look back. What do you think? Can true loyalty survive fame and fortune, or is betrayal inevitable when the stakes get high? How should we remember legends who were both brilliant and deeply flawed? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more powerful stories that reveal the hidden truths behind music's greatest icons, make sure you subscribe. More untold histories are coming soon.